What's going on, people? Welcome back to JSTV, back again. And tonight I've got Roberto. You're on mute, Roberto, by the way.
Hey, how are you, man?
Yeah, fantastic. I have to say that. No problems at all. I've got Roberto Rojas from ESPN. And good evening to you, Roberto.
Good evening, John. It's good to be here. It's good to see really kind of and I love seeing that Champions League shirt that you got on with the Champions League logo. I think there's a lot of people in Newcastle that have been so happy these last few days. And yeah, it's been good to see how they've kind of improved in some way and taking charge of this Champions League campaign. So we're gonna have to wait and see if it's sustainable. I personally think so, but love to obviously chat about someone that's kind of been getting in the headlines as of recently.
Yep, absolutely. You're going to talk about a couple of topics as well, and we go through them as we go along. If you like the video, like what you watch, guys, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, please. And also, super chats are open through the thanks option. Like to remember, it's 99p. It is a pre-recorded show, guys. Just for I let you know on that, and it's not a live show. Right, I want to talk about Wednesday's game between Newcastle and PSG, and everyone's making PSG Newcastle were favourites, but PSG are a really good side. Bunch of individuals though. And before the game, Newcastle fans were really up for it. The players were up for it as well. Were you surprised to see Newcastle beat PSG on the night?
I think when you look at it in perspective, and now obviously here we are speaking 48 hours after that result, I think, yes, it was a tough group even when it was first drawn. And I think the game against Milan kind of demonstrated that Newcastle can get something, especially being at home, especially the fact that it's the first Champions League game in 20 years that, this type of game is occurring. And so it could be it's always a big factor when it comes to these type of games that maybe you might not be the best team on paper, but ultimately when you have like kind of that passion within your fans and kind of this like good energy, it could be a big factor. And rightly so. I think I even spoke to my friends about this. I honestly saw a draw. I genuinely didn't think it would be this lopsided as I saw. And yeah, I mean, it looked as if though it was a demonstration of a Newcastle in the future, like how they are here to be serious and rightly so, beating one of the best teams in the world and with PSG, with some of the best players in the world. And I think it's a demonstration that, hopefully this becomes sustainable, that they allow themselves to continue with this momentum heading into future games against Dortmund, then the next games against Milan, of course, the return leg over there in Paris. So it's a good position to be in. 4 points after 2 games is very good, and in such a tight group where, you look at Milan, they only had 2 points so far. PSG, right there, and Dortmund as well. So I think it's a good thing to be in, and we'll have to wait and see how this goes, especially now as we go into later the season where games are going to be more congested. Who knows if there's going to be any more injuries? We already see that sometimes with some players here. I think it's going to be very fascinating to see how Newcastle really tackle all this. But really, from what I saw in those 90 minutes, I thought they played exceptionally well. I didn't think it was even close. So yeah, PSG got a goal late on, but it wasn't close. Like, it was cruise control from Eddie Howe's men all throughout. I don't think you could say anything bad about any player that I saw on the pitch, all of them that were there. And yeah, I think it's the performances like that allow Newcastle fans, maybe like yourself and many others, to feel confident that if we can do this against PSG, and of course getting the result that they did against Man City in the Carabao Cup and other results that they've been, they could do it against anyone. And I think it's a demonstration of how this Newcastle side has become in this year and this season, that they can compete with anyone if they want to. Obviously, they have to play it smart and be very tactically astute with it. But, I think this game was a demonstration that they're here. They're here to really cause a bit of a ruckus all across, not just England, but also across Europe.
Yeah, absolutely right. I totally agree with everything you said there as well. We're looking at the back four for Newcastle. Fabian Schär, Jamal Lascelles in for Sven Botman. They only cost 7 million quid between them, right, in centre defence. And we look at the PSG defence, you talk about over 100 million quid at least there, yeah? But Fabian Schär was absolutely outstanding. And also Jamal Lascelles, 3 games he's played, he's been outstanding as well. I mean, they defended properly. I thought they stood up to the task. I thought Mbappe is very disappointed, to be fair.
Yeah, I think it obviously is a big blow for PSG. And, you have to look at what even Luis Enrique said in that press conference beforehand, how, that they were a side that they feared, that they had to give all the utmost respect in the similar way that Newcastle had viewed PSG. I think, yeah, like any fan and any player that wants to perform well, they always think that they could beat them, whether it's Newcastle thinking that they could beat PSG or vice versa. I think you did see that. And, like I said beforehand, you see those good results from people that know what it's like to play for these clubs, know what it's like to play under this ground. And like you said, Jamal Lascelles, Fabian Shaw, they've been here for a while. Aimiron, someone that when you think about it, you look at all these three names, even all the goal scorers in all of this, Aimiron, Byrne, Longstaff, Shar, they're not exactly main names that are star-studded, like when you look at PSG, when they have Kylian Mbappe, Ousmane Dembele, and so on. But sometimes you don't need that. Sometimes you have to demonstrate it when your team chemistry works. And obviously, I think what Eddie Howe has done over the last now 2 years has really helped the side to create really good chemistry. And that's something that is important, because when you have that team chemistry and you're able to perform in that extent in these type of matches, it allows you to perform better. And you could see that even with the new names that came in, like Tonali, for example. Like, okay, maybe he hadn't had the best of games in comparison to others on the pitch, but still, he's always vital. And I think it's going to be interesting if, of course, like I said, if this is sustainable, because I think as much as Newcastle will feel happy about this result, and rightly so, there will come a time where, there are teams out there in European football that just have the resources and the talent and the depth to compete. And, you want that. And I think if Newcastle do feel like they can be serious in the transfer window, be it in January or even next summer, they need to spend rightly, because, like I said, you can't always be depending on, with no disrespect to Lascelles or Shar, because I think they're fantastic players, and I think they demonstrated that they could, and they proved me wrong. And if they can prove me wrong that they can do within longer extents of the season, then so be it. But there comes a time where you feel like you want players that can indeed compete at this level, and not even just that, just add more depth. I mean, it's still in retrospect, a thin squad. It's not exactly a star-studded stud, and I think star-studded squad. Yeah, try saying that 3 times. And it really goes into that. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm sure Newcastle didn't expect to be in this position when this whole takeover happened, but I think they felt like, this is the position that they're in. They earnedly deserved their qualification to the Champions League after finishing fourth in the Premier League last season. Here they are now, and they feel confident they can do it. My only fear is, of course, if that is, of course, like I said, sustainable, if they can deal with all these type of people who can indeed perform at this level without trying to, because that happens everywhere in Europe. It doesn't matter if it's Man City, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, whatever. Those teams that are going to go and compete and want to win the Champions League, I'm sure Newcastle will feel that way, maybe deep inside that they could do it. There are other teams out there that are on paper better, but it's better to reassure that you can indeed compete with the resources that you have and just work from there. But no, I mean, I think when you look at some of the players out there, you would think this was not deserved, but no, it was 100% deserved, and it's credit to the full of the confidence that Eddie Howe's given to all these players to allow them to perform well.
Yeah. Where do you think Newcastle will basically, can they go all the way? Do you think, how far can they go in the Champions League realistically?
Oh man, it's even tough enough to see if they can even get out of this group. Well, I mean, look, I think they're in a good position to go through. It's weird. It really is weird, because I think with these performances, again, they still haven't competed against all of the best of Europe. They did. I mean, obviously, they deal with a lot of them in England, and of course now they dealt with PSG. But it's really difficult, because this is a side that haven't played in this competition in 20 years. It's a whole different era. The way that football has been perceived and across Europe is way different. The imbalance of how football has become, in terms of the richer getting extremely rich, like your Cities, your Bayerns, and many others, and then you have Newcastle with like the new boys, like I'm trying to think off the top of my head, like Union Berlin or anyone else like that. You don't know what they can do. But I think with Newcastle, I think, like I said, it's going to be all dependent on how they view this really long season because they're going to be on with how the English teams perform in all this. They compete in a lot of tournaments, and you have to have a strong depth of squad players that allow you to perform on that because you got players who probably, let's realistically say, they go to the quarterfinals. Are they going to be at the same level that they were in October? They should because they're professional players, but you just don't know that. But I think, look, I mean, anything that they can do from here on out is a success. They didn't expect to go to an EFL Cup final last season. They didn't expect to finish fourth. A lot of people didn't think that. Here they are now. Sky's the limit. I think, yeah. I mean, now after these performances, the expectations have increased slightly. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think, yeah, if they can go to the knockout stage and go to the round of 16, depending on what tie they get, who knows at that point. But I think getting out of the group stage and, trying to build on from that will be a huge success for them. And hopefully that allows them to feel motivated of going back. Because it's not just going in. This isn't what Newcastle want. They don't want to just view this Champions League as a one-off. I think their project and the way that they do is they want to be in that consistently. They want to play in Europe consistently. They want to compete amongst the best in the Premier League and all that. So, yeah, I mean, for now, it's sky's the limit. But, there will come a point where, depending on how they view themselves after this season, is how they'll judge themselves moving forward.
Fantastic stuff. Let's move on to, before we talk about Miggy, we can leave that until the last bit. I want to talk about Lianne Sanderson. And now she's a TalkSport pundit, right? Now, she posted out a tweet to say that about Kevin Keegan. Now, basically, she's saying that Kevin Keegan is irrelevant, about Kevin saying about the lasses commentaries should not come on men's, etc., etc. Now, I tell you what Kevin Keegan's won, right? He's won 2 Ballon d'Ors, 1 European Cup, 2 UEFA Cup, 3 league titles, 1 FA Cup, 1 Bundesliga. He's been a Hall of Famer, the Players Player of the Year, Euro Player of the Year, Footy of the Year, and he's in the FIFA 100 Greatest Ever Footballers. 3 promotions, winning as boss, right? He's been Ballon d'Or winner twice, yeah? And Lianne Sanderson, right? A TalkSport pundit has come and said that he's irrelevant, yeah? And it's kicking off on Twitter, right? I don't know if you saw it today, I don't know. But for me, I think she needs to belt up, in my opinion, yeah? She's irrelevant as well. She's a Man U fan. In my opinion, I think she's doing that because she knows that we're going to beat them in the Carbo Cup revenge as well next round, yeah? So what's your take on Lianne Sanderson, number one? And Kevin Keegan, in my opinion, is a legend, no matter what. He's definitely not irrelevant. What's your take on that?
No, he's definitely not irrelevant at all. But I think you can really fault in both of these people because I think when Keegan and said about those comments about and again, this all comes relative in whatnot because I think everyone is entitled to their own opinion, whether or not it's good or not, and the majority of the people will agree with it. It's all dependent on that. Keegan said what he said about pundits commentating about England players and whatnot. I mean, if he feels that way, then so be it. The same for Lianne. Like if he feels that it's irrelevant, I personally obviously don't agree with her because I think, like you had mentioned beforehand, you mentioned all those successes that Kevin has had as a player and as a manager, that it's definitely not someone that should be irrelevant. But yeah, I think people just, they're not going to be pleased by it. I mean, rightly so. I think there is that notion where, we feel as if though as a society, we always like to shut doors amongst everyone else. And it shouldn't be that way. I think everyone has a right to speak about whatever. Doesn't matter if it's the men's game, the women's game, whoever it may be. Doesn't matter how big or how small you are. I think everyone is entitled to their opinion. And I think, yeah, obviously, I think Lianne was in the wrong in the same way that Kevin has as well. But I think there is this kind of feeling as if though that you just have to really look at it prospectively and think, is it right saying this? Is it right to even getting mad? Is it right to feel that way? And that happens everywhere. It could be from a simple social media post to anything that's said on the radio or on again, Kevin's entitled to his opinion. Lianne is entitled as well. But I think ultimately, you have to really look at it and think, is it worth even saying all this? Because the upheaval that you get. So Yeah, I mean, each to their own. Like I said, I don't really have much more to go with this because it's not it's not my issue, thankfully. But yeah, I mean, you can't really have a clear winner in all of this, really.
Yeah, in my opinion, right? She even told Kevin Keegan to shut up as well. But
Yeah, I mean, you just have to think about it real quick. You're like, is it worth doing this? Like, do you know, sometimes you have to show respect, and I think that's always been an important value for anyone. But yeah, not like this. Not when you've done so much, and they've both done relatively important things for the game, be it men's or women's. But I think you just have to just think to yourself, if I'm Leanne or if I'm Kevin, I'm like, is it worth really dealing with all this drama? Because you know what's going to happen, and being in the public eye does that to you sometimes.
absolutely. My opinion is regarding the Miggy. My opinion is she needs to shut up, number one. Secondly, she needs to think what she said. Because I tell you what, now we're all closing her down. And you know what? She hasn't said a word since. Yeah. I'm not surprised I've been blocked because I replied back to her as well. So to me, she is violent. There you go. Let's move on to the final topic. Miggy Aimirons. Now, he came to Newcastle in 2019 for 22 million quid, yeah. He's had a slow start and a tough time because he's not been scoring goals for a season and a half, 2 seasons, yeah. But last season, he's been absolutely fantastic. Scored 12 goals last season, and now he's scored 4 and 3 this season. And Miggy Aimirons, for me, I love him. He works hard for the team, yeah. And he's 29 now. I mean, do you think he's hitting his peak?
Well, I mean, he's at the age that he has to do it, so I think it's rightly so. I think, yeah, it's always going to be a big debate, and I've been dealing it with a lot of Newcastle fans like you and many others, that feel as if though they are divided about Almiron, and rightly so. If we didn't see the full expectations of him, and this club has changed tremendously ever since he joined back in 2019 to now. Perspectives have changed, players have come. He's still here, and it shows that Eddie Howe really cares about him and really values him, as do his other players, as his other teammates. So it's really going into that. Yes, of course, I think him not performing to the extent does indeed, and even last season was really the be all end all about whether or not he actually is indeed valuable to this side. And I think that was when you look at how Newcastle was really looking into how their season was going to be and how their priorities have changed under this new ownership, is that a lot of these players are going to have to step up because they know they're going to be replaceable. So yeah, I mean, it's good to see him perform at that level. As a Paraguayan myself, I'd love to see him do the same thing for the national team. We play Argentina in 6 days' time, so obviously
Yeah.
this form that he's been on for Newcastle needs to be replicated on the national team. He's having that kind of divided opinion as well in regards to him not performing to that extent as well, especially how many years he's been playing in English football. So, no, I think it's going to be interesting to see if he can continue this, similar start that he had around this time last season, if he can do it again this time. But yeah, I mean, I think he has to obviously demonstrate that he can indeed perform. I think he was a bit unlucky in some of the games that maybe like against Liverpool. I think, he had 3 shots that clearly could have gone in either way if it wasn't for some post and Allison being a great goalkeeper at the day. But he's getting his goals. I mean, obviously the game against Sheffield kind of opened the door. It shows that he can. I think my fear is that, of course, he's still relying on that left foot, that he really is not using both feet,
Yeah.
and I think that is something that I feel will kind of hinder his performances for the club. So yeah, I mean, I think he can do better, but ultimately, if he can still continue to score goals and contribute, and surely Eddie Howe always values him for that, then I think you have to recognize it when it is, and criticize like any other player on Newcastle when you have to.
Yeah, we've got a chat called Foxy, and he's South American expert on my channel, and he loves South American football. He loves Miggy Aimirons every single time, and he does like when people have a go at him and that sort of thing. But it's all good heart. But for me, I just think he's getting better and better all the time. I'm a big Miggy fan, and the only problem he needs to work on is his right foot. But unfortunately, I don't think he's very good at his right foot, and he's also on his left foot. I mean, he does frustrate the fans, but he does use his right foot. But at the end of the day, he's a fan favourite. We love him. And I hope he just carries on what he's doing because Eddie Howe loves him. He is the first choice right side midfielder, which I think is only right. And he's going to get better.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, like I said beforehand, if Eddie Howe is giving him that trust amongst other players, and this isn't anything against players like Jacob Murphy, who is a good player on his day, but I think when you really look at it and demonstrate who puts in more effort, it's really what Almiron does, and Eddie Howe has said it. It's not just me and many others. I think when you look at other people who have also kind of sing the praises, and it's going to be like this until the end of his Newcastle career, whenever that will be. But it's just you just go with it and you try to enjoy it as best as you can, and hopefully he helps Newcastle win titles and does well and allow them to win games. Then who knows? I mean, did you hear that roar after he scored that goal against PSG? I mean, that's probably one of the loudest. I've been to St. James's Park twice in my life, dude. But when I heard that, like on TV, and I was like, wow, that is insane. When you look at how people, and if it was any other player, I'm sure it would have been a similar reaction. But I think just because it's him, I think him earning that status to hopefully cult hero and fan favorite, which I think he is. I think he is a fan favorite. As much as there is that criticism on social media, I think people will appreciate him long after he's gone, especially the way that Newcastle's performed. People are going to remember that performance. Just like, of course, I'm not making big comparisons, but who knows? Faustino Spria being remembered for his hat trick against Barcelona. Players like Aimiron, Longstaff, Byrne, and Schär, they're going to be remembered for that game against PSG. So it's a big deal, and hopefully he just continues this form as the games get harder, and obviously when the priorities get bigger as well.
Yeah, and one final question before we wrap up the show. What do you think of the Newcastle United fans? I mean, I've been asked the question, you're thinking Newcastle fans. I mean, any message you got to say about Newcastle fans? Anything good? Or how do you rate Newcastle fans?
I think these fans, and I've had the fortune of meeting some fantastic people during my time really following the club as much as I've had ever since me joined. There have been some idiots here and there. That happens everywhere. I mean, no one is prone to that, but no, I mean, I think they are a wonderful group of people. They've been welcoming to me, to my friends. The last time I went to the game against Wolves in March, where Aimiron scored the game winner. I was there with my friends. They were nice enough to help us out when we went to St. James's Park. I think it was a really nice time there. And then even before that, when I went to the game against Southampton in 2019, when Jose Perez scored a hat trick, I was there. I think it really is a demonstration of how, social media, as much as it's become toxic nowadays, there is that remembrance of people helping you out. And I've had the fortune of knowing so many great people here and there that I still keep in touch, even if Almiron's not even involved, even if it's nothing that's going on with him. I still reach out. I still want to know how they're doing. And yeah, I mean, I think the fans are passionate in what they are. And I feel very much impressed to see how much they've grown in terms of this, development as a club that has become much more serious from the days of fearing relegation to now at seeing in the Champions League. It's refreshing to see. And, I obviously wish them all the best, all the ones that are good and bad, and hopefully that their team just does well moving forward.
Fantastic. And on that bombshell, I mean, Roberto, thank you so much for coming on my channel as well. And it's been an absolute blast, and it's absolutely so pleasure for you to come on as well. So made up. And did you enjoy coming on my channel?
I had fun, John. I had a really great time. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. And where can you find you on your socials, please? So people that don't know you.
Yeah, man. Thank you again for having me. First of all, you can follow me on Twitter at Roberto Rojas 97. That's where I obviously tweet about whatever's going on in my world. Obviously, check out my work that I do at ESPN as well. You can also follow my 2 podcasts that I do, Lowland with Football, where I talk about with another co-host, Joe Usello, about everything that's going on in the world of football. It doesn't matter if it's in Europe, South America, North America, wherever. We do that. And you can also check out my other podcast, Guarani Vision, which is the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. If you want to know more about when Aimiron is playing, how he's doing, everything that's going on in Paraguayan football, be it domestically, in the Copa Libertadores, whatever it may be, we are there. So you can check out those 2 podcasts and myself on Twitter as well.
Fantastic. The links are in the description as well on Roberto's Twitter handle as well. And I will do backstage quickly. And make sure you like and subscribe. And this is a pre-recorded show. And I'll see you back soon. And as always,